Good afternoon, everybody. Like I'm talking to you here from Gatineau, just outside of Ottawa. It's nice to see you. I see some of you. I see Gerald is by the beach. It's fantastic. Lucky you. Wish I could be in the same place. Just by curiosity, because I'm a curious person, if you could find a chat box, because we're going to use a chat box along the way today. So I'd just like to know where you're from, like where you are right now, like or in BC. Just write it down. Just type it in the chat box. Just give me a Manitoba, BC, Alberta, and Ottawa. Good, Ottawa, BC, Ontario, Calgary, Barrie, awesome, Moncton, PEI, Regina. So we got a good representation from most provinces here. This is good. Vancouver, BC, another Winnipeg, fantastic, good. Hello, Gary, Ottawa, Marathon, Ontario, Spruce Grove, been there, Calgary, Saint Jean sur Richelieu, good. I didn't know they had some nice beach over there. BC and interior, good. Edmonton, awesome. So, nice to have you here today. So we're going to be using the chat box a lot. I like it to make it as interactive as possible today. So you can leave it open, and during the course of the presentation, if you have any comments or questions, just put it there, and if I can answer them as we go, that'd be great. Second question I have for you here right now, and you can watch your screen right now, is how focused are you planning to be for the next hour? I'm going to explain my scale from 1 to 7. 1 means that, you know, I'm looking by the window. It looks like it's a nice day. I would prefer to be outside. I would prefer to do something else. I'm not focused because I got 2 phones going on. My door is open. There's noise outside. Kids are cooking. So that's a 1. On the other side, a 7 is that you plan to be entirely focused for the next hour. You've put your phone away, and you're totally ready to go for the next hour. So if you had to put a number in the chat box from 1 to 7, what it would be? I see Mike already a 7, and I don't care like what type of 10. My God, I won't hire you to do my accounting. 5, 6, that's good. 5, 7, 6. I don't mind about your result here. 6, perfect. A. I don't know what you mean there, but that's good. 6, perfect. 7, good. So that being said, regardless of what you told me, I'd like you to think in the next 10 seconds, what can you do in order to bring a number from a 4 to a 5 or 5 to a 6? Maybe it's finishing your coffee. Maybe it's put your phone away. So I'll let you decide how you want to bring your number up by 1 in the next 10 seconds. Whatever it is, you can just close the door, put your headset, whatever it is, but I'll let you the freedom to decide how you want it to be more focused in the next hour here. Closing the door is perfect, good. You don't have to write it, but it's good to hear that you are involved in that process. Just focus, good. Putting your phone away, fantastic. So let me share my screen. Perfect. And then I'll put it full screen. And here we go. I hope you can see my screen now. So the title of the presentation is LTAD or LTD, which is the new terminology now, 101. So we're going to revisit a couple of things that you might have seen before. And at the same time, we'll see about those myths and realities that are surrounding LTD in Canada and also around the world as well. So a little bit about myself, a little bit more about myself. I grew up in Quebec City, which is the capital city of the province of Quebec. Then moved to Montreal. Lived there for a couple of years before, coming to Ottawa, where I've been for the last 20 years. Went to school at Laval University in Quebec City. Studied human kinetics, and I had a professor there that always said to the students, you know, if you want to be the best, you got to go see the best. I'm a baseball person. I come from the sport of baseball. And at that time, the best nation was Cuba. So listen to my prof. I was a good student. So got on a plane, went to Cuba, tried to find the Cuban Baseball Federation, knocked at the door. I said, you know, I got a prof, and he told me to go see the best. So here I am. What can you do for me? And they were fantastic. So I enrolled into their program at the institute in Havana. And they taught me everything I know about baseball. And basically now we return a couple of times a year to give back, because as much as this nation was the leading nation in baseball at that time, it's not the case anymore, because they fall behind. They're falling behind for quite a number of reasons that we're going to be explaining today through this presentation here. So growing up, I was a fan of baseball. So growing up in Quebec City, used to drive 2 hours to go to Montreal with my dad, who was a baseball fan. This is little André here, and meeting my idols at Olympic Stadium. So this was my youth as a kid in Quebec growing up. And like fast forward some years, 2003, as I was in Ottawa, my boss said, like, like, we're starting a women's team. We would like you to be the head coach of the women's national team. And I said, I don't think so. I'm not sure I want to coach women. That was my response at that time. And that lasted 15 years. I coached that team for 15 years. They taught me so much. They made me better, a better coach, a better human being, I believe. And this photo was taken from the 2015 Pan Am Games in Toronto. And along the way, we were able to bring our team to the second best spot in the world, just behind Japan. And most of those nations are baseball nations. So in order to accomplish that, we had to do things differently. So we had to do things in a different manner, so we can compete and be even ahead of the USA, where baseball is almost a religion there. Same thing in Japan, same thing in Venezuela, Chinese Taipei, Korea, Cuba, Dominican Republic, all baseball nations. But we did things differently. So spent 15 years coaching Team Canada. Then after 2018, I said, well, that's it. I'm going to leave my spot to someone else. And then the phone rang, and the France Baseball Federation contacted me, and I became the head coach of the France national team. And first year, first European championship, and we ended up winning and qualifying for the 2020 World Cup that was postponed because of the current pandemic. Again, a great, and like, people ask me, like, how was it to coach France? And for the first time in 15 years, just to be able to coach in French was to me like fantastic. So just going back to my roots and going back to my language also was fantastic. Been teaching at Ottawa U for the last 20 years, also mainly coaching classes, courses, and for me, it's good because it keeps me grounded to this generation, and by keeping yourself grounded with the generation, it makes you think differently about their needs, about what can you do in your sport to do things differently in order to meet their needs in a better fashion. So for me, it has been a great journey teaching those kids. And I've been fortunate to act as either a consultant or to make presentations to tons of organizations, not only in Canada, but also internationally. And most recently, I spent most of the time with Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, and most recently the USOC, United States Olympic Committee, and the Pan Am Sports Organization, talking about LTD, talking about coach education. And I've been fortunate also to do some work with on the corporate side also with hydro and pharma companies and so on and so forth. So lots of things that I've learned from those organizations about quality sports and about quality programming that I'd like to share with you today. So right now you might be thinking, oh my God, a baseball guy, this is going to be so boring. Like, I hate baseball, it's so slow and boring, and I'm stuck with the baseball guy for the next hour. Well, I'd like to reassure you, I won't be talking too much about my sport. I'll talk about quality sports. And that's why I want to make it as interactive as possible and use the chat box and make sure that you can comment as we go here. So 3 things on my agenda today that I want to be talking about. Some generalities about long-term athlete development, the vision and the mission and the philosophy that is a person and athlete-centered program. And you might not have seen a lot of the person-centered approach, but I'm going to discuss that. And the third point is that people ask me, okay, is this thing working? Like, and we're going to talk about the world, where it has been implemented and who's having success, not only here in Canada, but in other nations as well. Before we do that, I'd like to set the stage of how I come to you and what I'd like you to, what type of mindset I'd like you to be in before we get to the meat of the conversation today. So I come to you as a friend of judo. Although I'm not at all involved in your sport, I come to you as a friend. And a friend will tell you realities, sometimes will tell you what they think, right? So that's how I would like you to perceive me, in the sense that I'm gonna, might tell you things that you don't like, or you say, oh, I'm not too much in agreement with what he just said. But at the end of the day, I'm here to make you think. When I make you think, it makes you also reflect on your current practices and things you could do better, okay? So it's like throwing rocks in the water. So it's gonna, like, water will go up a little bit and you might have some on yourself. And that's how I'm gonna see this presentation today, is you'll get some water on you at some point, because it's gonna affect the way you think, probably. So that's gonna be my role also throughout the course of the day. Some people say that it's like having a little kick in the butt, right? And the good thing about a good kick in the butt is that it hurts sometimes, but I don't know if you've noticed, but after receiving a good kick, you always go forward. It's always for the positive, right? It's always good to go forward. So I'm not asking you to be in agreement with everything I'm going to be sharing. Some of it is scientific related, but I'd like you to think about how we could do things differently so we can move forward. We're going to be asking lots of why. Okay, when I ask about lots of why, is there a better way of doing things, that something that we've done for so many years? There must be a better way of doing things, okay? And we're gonna go back to this a lot throughout the course of the presentation. So I've been doing this for quite some time, but maybe there's a better way of doing things. So my athletes will get a better positive experience with my sport, and will get more benefits and maybe more successes along the way. And it's gonna involve some changes also. Things are evolving, right? If you are my generation, you probably remember that beautiful thing on the left side of your screen, which was a Walkman. If you were lucky enough, maybe on your Walkman, you had that little yellow orange button at the top, and that was the auto reverse. So that was fantastic. You didn't have to open it to read the other side of the tape. So that was fantastic. That was luxury at its prime at that time, right? And you could carry 15, 20 songs, that's it. While today, we're looking at those smartphone that carries thousands of songs and probably growing with years also. So things are changing. Here's another example that how things are changing. And then you can use a chat box. If you know where those pictures were taken, write them in the chat box. Same place, only 8 years difference. Do you have any ideas where that was taken? I'm just curious to see if you're good, because I did it in French earlier and they found it. I'm not putting you too much pressure, but you need to find it. So let me take a look at the, oh, Amanda, woo, rocking it. Fantastic. So it was the announcement of the Pope. Italy, Haley, yes, exactly. So that was the announcement of the Pope, but you see only 8 years difference. And you see how the technology exploded with only 8 years. So that's only one example that things are changing, and not only in this environment there, but also in sports. And we need to embrace change if we want to grow as organization, as clubs, as sports in Canada. And sometimes people will say, you know, like, I don't have the resources, I don't have the money to change, and so on and so forth. But sometimes it's just about decisions. So the gentleman you see on this photo here had a plan, had all the resources. He's just making a bad decision, right? So he had everything, that he had a goal in mind, but he's just making a bad decision. And that's why I want you to think differently about how you could do things differently in your sport moving forward. And same thing here. I want you to be then in the mindset that there's always something nicer out there. So if you bring someone from Europe, from the South Hemisphere, to our side of the country right now, where it's the middle of the winter and we do those ice sculpture, and they see this, they might think this is so nice. You can't beat this. This is beautiful, right? And they want to take photos and everything. And if they were with me, I would say, well, just wait. Let's keep walking a little bit, see if we can do better. And then we keep walking, and then we see this thing, and then the person saying, wow, this is so nice. We cannot do better than this. And we got the same message again. I said, let's keep walking, see if we can beat it. And then we get in front of this beautiful thing here. And then we got the same comment, right? And they say, wow, like really, like we can't really beat this. I said, hold on, we got even more. We got a village that was built that way with ice and snow. So I want you to be in that mindset that what you think is the top, what you think is the best, there's probably something out there that's gonna beat it, that's gonna be over what you can imagine. So that's kind of the mindset I'd like you to be in with me for this presentation this afternoon here. You've probably seen it before. Every time there is a crisis, you see those headlines in the newspaper. So this is a soccer story, World Cup in Brazil, and then nightmare happens. Team Brazil did not win the World Cup on their home court, on their home field that same year. They got beat by Germany. Front page of magazine, newspaper, end of the world. We need to do things differently. And those are the things that you're going to see. Brazil rethinking national team future after disastrous loss, failure to win at home. We need to evolve as a sport. We need to think differently about our game. We need to find a way to start restructuring our football. We need to choose new people with new thoughts. You see this all the time. Here's another example. USA speed skating used to be the best in the world. Worst Olympics ever. See what happened. Same type of message. Brought in outside expert, and we had a really open and frank conversation. So why do we always wait for a crisis? You might think things are going well right now for your club, for your sports, for your province, for the country. So why do we wait for that plane to crash in order to react? And you know what happens when the plane crashes? There's something that we need to find, and that's a black box. In the black box, you're going to find all kinds of great information about conversation between the tower and the pilots, information about where the plane was when it crashed and everything. So we're always looking for those black boxes in order to get information about what just happened. So during the course of this presentation, I'd like you to open your own black box, the black box that captures all the information about your club, your association, your group, your training, your athletes, and put it all on the table before it crashes. Okay, so think about your club, your association, your group as having a black box that we need to open up. And maybe we're going to confirm that some things that we already do are good, but maybe we're going to see that other things needs to be changed. Here's a quick, another quick question for you. And that's a presentation we made at Hockey Canada years ago, and we challenged the people to answer that quick question. In 1990, how many Canadian players were in the NHL, in your opinion? Do you have any idea? In 1990, so that's about 30 years ago, what was the percentage of Canadians in the NHL? And you can guess it in the chat box if you want. 90%, good. Russ? 80, 75, Katie, 70, 80, pretty good. 80, 80, 80, 65, 50, good. So let's look at the answer. In 1980, it was 73% of Canadians in the NHL. What would be the situation right now in 2021, but the results I have is 2020. What's the percentage right now of Canadian players in the NHL compared to 1990? Any idea? 50, 45, 33, good, awesome, 55, 48. Yes, some of you are very, very close, 42. So for the first time, I think it started in 2018, we went below 50%. So right now, it's 43.1%, which is about 342 players out of those roughly 800 players in the NHL. So the message we had for Hockey Canada at that time was, if we were FedEx, Google, PepsiCo, Walmart, Amazon, would all be fired. And then that was silence in the room. We would all be fired because it's unacceptable that you lost like close to 30 to 40% of your market share because you thought you were doing the right thing over time. You would all be fired. Okay, so that was a wake-up call that we need to do things better. And I know that was hard for them to hear that, but at the same time, that was the wake-up call that some of them needed at that time for change to happen. So let's take a look first at generalities, going back to our little menu that we had at the beginning. And I want to start with a little story. And that's the story of the triangle versus the rectangle. And that's basically what long-term development, long-term athlete development is. So let's take a look deeper into this here. So when you look at the pyramid, and this is where most sports in the world are right now as far as a model to create good athletes in their sport. So at the bottom, you have your 7 athletes there that are represented by letters. And as they progress through the pyramid, we're going to lose some of them, right? Because some of them might notice that they're not good enough, or they might be cut because the coach don't like them, and so on and so forth. So that's the purpose of a pyramid. At the top, you get the best athletes, and at the bottom, you want to have as many as possible. So you get to the top with your best possible athletes. So that's been the model for years, right? Until we started proposing the rectangle, where we want to avoid losing as many athletes as possible as we go through the progress here. And let's dive into it a little bit more. So on the rectangle to your right here, this is the Canadian long-term athlete development model. Quickly, if we look at the first 3 stages of development, active start, fundamentals, and learn to train, this is your foundation. So if you take the example, for an example of an iceberg, if you want your iceberg to emerge above the water, you need that good foundation underneath the water, right? In order for that athlete to emerge. You might notice also that the pyramid is still part of it. So the little triangle is there too, right? Right on the left side here. So it's not disappearing, but we're giving those athletes an exit point that they can stay in the sport so they could be active for life. Okay, so let's take a look a little bit more deeper into what I'm saying here. So when we look at the pyramid, if you follow what I just said, we're talking about exclusion. As you move towards the top of the pyramid, we just see athletes dropping out and moving on to other things in life, where the rectangle is more about inclusion. So they might leave the mini pyramid inside of the rectangle, but maybe they want to stay competitive. Maybe they want to go coach. Maybe they want to just be fit for life. So there is a place for them to be if they want to continue practicing their favorite sport, in your case, which is judo. Left side, we're talking short-term goals, while on the right side, we're talking about long-term goals, okay, which is important also. It's called long-term development. Left side is about pipeline, while the right side is about pathways. There are different pathways to get to where you want to go. On the left side, we're talking about age group only, where on the right side, we're talking about abilities. That's an advantage, a competitive advantage that you have as a sport compared to my sport, where we're stuck with age groups. You're better equipped with the types of sport that you're involved. The first one is about cutting athletes, removing athletes, you're not good enough, versus the other one, which is about transferring athletes to other stages of development so they can stay involved longer. The first sport, the left side, the pyramid, is about working alone, and that's going to be a key message that I have for you today, versus working together. So in the sense, like if I can use your image here in your sport, you need to remove your uniform, you need to remove your playing surface, your competitive surface, in order to work together a bit more. And that's happening all the time with other sports. If I'm with racket sports, for an example, what I see in meetings is I see the representation of the game in meeting. where they're in opposition and they fight all the time versus working together. Keep remembering that collaboration is the new competition. Most sports that are having success right now are the ones that are capable of working together, because at the end of the day, it's not Judo Canada, it's Judo in Canada. It's not Judo Saskatchewan, it's Judo in Saskatchewan. So that's totally different approach. Instead of competing against each other, you need to work together. And that's a key message, one of the key messages I have for you today. And on the left side, it's more about, it's for sport versus for society. The collateral impact that you're going to have on society is not something we want to put on the side, because it's really important in what we do as a collective here. So that's kind of the main differences between the two. And most nations now are embracing the rectangle versus the triangle. And in both cases, you saw that little medal going up here, you can accomplish good, high performance, elite performance on the left side. And it's still possible, because some people think that, okay, it's a model, that it's only for fun. No, it's not, but the pathway to the podium is just different, okay? So in both cases, you can have successes, but on the right side, on the rectangle side, there's more opportunities to end up somewhere else and to stay active in your sport as well. So the solution that most nations are embracing right now is the rectangle versus the triangle. Some things to keep in mind also is that kids are not adults in miniature. Knowing that they have different needs. It's not because you've been taught something at the adult age, that you have to impose those elements on kids, because kids have totally different needs. And we're going to talk about it in a couple of seconds here. And girls are not boys. They have different needs also, and they need to be approached differently than how we approach boys in our training environment, in our competitive environment also. So you've probably seen this one before, which is a key element of long-term athlete development. I'm going to explain it, not too much in details because of time, but I'm going to highlight the most important things. At the top, you got the female athletes. At the bottom, you got the male. And in the middle here, you do have the chronological age. So if you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, all the way to 20 plus. And what you see there are the sensitive periods for trainability. It means that at certain period of your life, there are moments that you should put more emphasis on something because it's the right moment to do it, okay? So if I would tell you, for example, or ask you, what's the right age to train speed in general? So the answer will be 6 to 8 for little girls, 7 to 9 for little boys. Therefore, even if speed is not important in a certain sport, you should be developing speed, because at the end of the day, an athlete that you're working with might change and go to another sport. Okay, we're working together. All right. And at some point and we've all been through it at different rate, at different moment, we have what we call growth spurt. So at some point between the age of 12 and 17, suddenly there's growth spurt happening, and suddenly, like, I'm growing faster for whatever reason. It's for an athlete, certain athlete A, it's at 13, another one is at 15, but it's happening, okay? And that's the curve that you see here, little spike that you see in the maturity of the graphic that you have in front of you here. So based on that, things will take form. So if I'm about to start, or I'm starting my growth spurt, there are things that you should not be working on and avoiding as much as possible, which is strength training, okay? But there are things that you should be working on, which is stamina and endurance, all right? So the question you might have right now is that, okay, this is all great, this is fantastic. How do I know if I'm on the curve, I'm here, or I'm here, right? And that would be a fantastic question. So you need to know something. So what grows first in the body is your limbs, okay? Arms, for example, here, okay? So you need to measure. I don't know if you can see here, arm span, right? If you go against the wall here, you just measure my arm span from left to right. When you start to see growth in arm span, it tells you that your growth spurt is starting. So therefore, your ligaments are stretched as much as you can imagine. It's crazy. In my sport, for an example, when you're in that phase, if I ask a pitcher to throw and throw and throw and pitch the ball, it's going to create damage in 3 to 4 years after that. Okay, so you need to understand that. What grows last would be your deceleration here on the curve going down is your trunk. Okay, so if I can show you here, but you sit on the floor, you measure from the floor all the way to the top of your head. Okay, and when that starts to grow, it tells you that you're decelerating, and then it will be a good moment to start thinking about strength development because you're in the right phase to do it. Okay. So you're probably thinking now, well, this is complicated. So, you know, if I'm a coach dealing with 12 to 17-year-old athletes, how am I going to make it happen? Well, this is why I think our best coaches should be working with those athletes here at the age, because it's so complicated. Okay, and that tells you also that objectives for athletes 12 to 17 should be adjusted to the growth spurt. So I wish I had more time to go through flexibility and skills development, just for you to understand also skills development during the course of the time you are between 9 and 12 years old. This is the golden age of skills development, regardless of your sport. Okay, so that's very important to know also. So that's a key thing, a key learning for you here. And why do we put an emphasis on on teenagers? For multiple reasons. There's a recognition there that there's a high dropout rate of athletes at that time. Okay, so that's something that you should, Jonathan, you asked what is PHV? It's peak height velocity. Thank you, Gary, for answering the question. Fantastic. ACA growth spurt, yes, exactly. Recognition also of multi-sport and live demand is growing. And that's why we need to spend more time in identifying the special issues to address with those athletes in the train-to-train stage of development, which is most of the time between the age of 12 and 17-ish. So we talked about also the fact that we want to be person and athlete first. So let's take a look at this also. So that's your main goal as coaches, as organization, as club. If we can develop athletes that are going to be active for a long time, skilled, imaginative, resourceful, and resilient, this is fantastic. This is what we all reach for in any sport. So that's something that we should aim as well in the sport of judo. Here's something also to recognize is that, and that's something that won't change, between the moment you're born and the moment you get to 12 years old, you get you get 4,380 days that separates the moment you're born to the moment you get to 12 years old. So how are we going to use those days at the benefit of athlete development? And if we go even more into what we talked about being teenagers, so between the age of 12 and 18, you get just over about 2,000 days that you have available for you. So what are you going to do with those 2,000 days in order to either develop high performance athletes or to bring the athletes to the highest possible level that they can reach? That's all you have, 2,000 days. That's not a lot. That's six years of training. And when we talk about quality programming, we talk about 3 elements that I'm going to describe a little bit more in details. We talk about good programs, good places, and good people. And as clubs and as organization, if you can find a way to make your programs, your places, and your people better, the quality of the experience will be greater, and therefore the quality of the experience will be better. Therefore, you're going to keep your people longer too, right? And they can, once they leave, they go because they can't compete anymore. They want to move on in life. They can always say that what I learned in judo makes me today a better politician, a better mechanics, a better policeman, a better teacher. And at the end of the day, this is what we want. So let's take a look at some examples of good programs. I'll talk about mine a little bit to explain to you what we've done in order to change things. what we call our baseball effect is that our organization, the NSO, we provide guidance, innovation, leadership programs, coaching programs, and so on and so forth. We believe that we have an impact on baseball in Canada by having environment that is family oriented, a good atmosphere, celebrate the tradition, inclusive, and so on and so forth. And therefore, we're going to have like collateral impact on overall society. So this is our mission and vision on how we see our game, how we see our sport. And when I started, one of my first mission was to go see how baseball was practiced, was played with kids for the first time. So that first experience, think about it. So first time someone comes to your dojo and they want to practice judo for the first time. Is it a good experience? So what makes it a good experience? For me, it was a terrible experience in our sport because there was something that we used to have, was called T-ball, where nobody was active, kids were on the field, playing with the sand, playing with flowers, picking their nose, whatever they're doing. That was a terrible experience. So we changed that, okay? And we actually copied martial arts, which is funny. And people say, oh, this is not possible. You know, we cannot bring the martial art concept to baseball. I said, well, why not? So, you know, you have the color belts. We do have the color hats. It's working like crazy. We got about 40,000 hats produced every year. So we looked at other things. We stole ideas from another discipline and we implemented into our game, and it's working fine, right? So this is why I'm saying, like, don't hesitate to look at what other sports are doing in order to be able to change the way you've been seeing your sports for so many years in order to grow it. Another thing that we've done also is something that I've been noticing is that coaches were over-coaching at every age group, okay? So we want to simplify this. And here's how we simplified it, is that we called it the absolutes. And the number you see there, let's take a look at the 11 first. So absolutes 11 mean two things: 11 years old and 11 elements that you should be teaching during the course of the summer. That's it. We don't want you to do anything else. 11 things, okay, that we break down between technical, physical, tactical, and mental. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And those are for absolutes 11. You probably notice, well, you probably don't know baseball as much as I do here, but the seven out of the 11 elements are technical, because this is the golden age of skills development. One of them is tactical, one of them is physical, and one of them is mental. Really, really easy. And we feel that if a coach focus on those elements during the course of the year, that we're going to be better collectively. And we've done the same thing with 13 elements, and 15 with 15 elements as well. So what I've seen also with many organizations is they do have that great, what they call the gold medal profile. All the athlete looks like when his potential of winning a gold medal at the Olympics or World Championship. But we don't do the same thing. Like if I ask you right now, what's a good 14-year-old, a good 12-year-old in your sport? I might have 64 participants. I might have 64 different answers. And it's happening all the time in most sports that I've been working with. We don't have a consistent answer as what a good 14, 16, 18-year-old judo athlete or any athletes in any other sports look like. So as a reminder also, we have to keep in mind that those 4 legs of the table are so important, because the top of the table is our athlete. And if we want that athlete to be solid, we need to make sure that those 4 legs are solid as well. And those 4 legs are the technical portion of the sport, the tactical, the physical, and the mental. If I remove one, let's say that we remove the mental leg of this table, will the table stand? Yes, it will. It won't be solid, especially if I decide to sit on that corner where I remove that leg, it's going to collapse. So those 4 elements remain really, really important as we develop our programs, as we develop our skills matrix in order to bring our athletes to the next level. So we need to recognize that also as a sport, as an organization. talk about good people, and that's gonna probably make you laugh and smile. Don't take it personally. I'm just not promoting, but showing you a book that I've read, and you'll see the title of the book. And I'm like inviting you to find the book. It's called The No Asshole Rule, and it's a fantastic book. And it talks about the people sometimes that are polluting the development of organization, the development of culture in organization also. And they've developed in the book, they talk about the TCA. And the TCA stands for the total cost of assholes. Okay, and it explains what it means. And the findings are really, really interesting, is that when we are surrounded by people that are not good at collaborating, that are polluting our environment, you'll see others decreasing their effort by 48%. You'll see others work less time, 47%, dropping their quality work, declining in performance, lost time worrying, lost time avoiding the asshole, became less committed. And you know what, 20%, 25% of them will quit, and 20% of them will witness someone else quit. So therefore, having good people in our organization is key to any group wanting to work better. And also another important element that we need to mention also is to understand each other limits. So that means something. And I know it's hard, what I'm going to tell you here. I know you say, well, it's really difficult to do, but we need to understand that it's important if we want our sport to grow, to bring to another level. So understanding your limits as a coach, meaning that at a certain point, I need to let go our athletes so that athletes can work maybe with another coach, another organization, in order to reach new limits, new horizon, new successes. And I know it's hard because I've been a coach also, letting go of an athlete because I've reached my limit, because I cannot give that athletes more. It's difficult to do, but it's so important. And it shows also how vulnerable we are as human beings, as coaches, in order to understand that, you know, it's time now to part ways, to let go, to move on, so you can become even better as an athlete. I know it's hard, but I'm telling you, like any organization that are having success right now, they're capable of doing this, okay? So what you're seeing here is that if you're working with that athlete here, you need to let the athlete go here in order to work with another group, another team, so they can go to the next level, okay? So that's really, really highly important. That's something that I'd like you to remember also. And it brings me to the comment I hear all the time also, is that, you know, like, I got 25 years of experience, right? That coach has 25 years of experience. That's good, right? But you don't want to be that person who claims to have 25 years of experience, but has 25 times the same year of experience. That's totally different, right? Because at 25 times the same year of experience means there's no growth. It's always repeating the same mistake, and therefore having results that we're wondering why we're not having those results, right? Just going to do, okay. Yes, Alan, I just got your message also in direct message. There's also a book called Hassles, which help to understand, identify, and work with them. Fantastic. Good. Other things to consider also, kids like competition and parents like comparison. That's something that's going to stay there for quite some time also. And we need to be able to work better with parents. And you'll see that those parents are out there in any level, any sports. And I think I got a little video to show you here. So when you look at that video, probably the only people there that was quite amused with that situation were probably those two yelling parents that you can hear in the video, right? Hopefully you had the sound. So that kid there that is, I guess, talented, right? So he can run and he's very strong, obviously. He's not in the right environment, and the other kids around also are not in the right environment to have proper learning. That's what I mean by parents. We need to do better in educating parents about everything that we're talking about today. Asking kids what they want, that's not something we're really good at in Canada, about what they prefer. And I'll show you a couple of results of some research that has been done about what kids like. Okay, what brings them more fun and what brings them less fun. And you might be surprised with some of the answers here. What brings them more fun? Number one, do your best. Do your best. There's a missing R here. Do your best is the number one thing. The second thing, athlete treated with respect, have some playing time, getting along with teammates, and be active. Guys, those are the top 5. That's all they care about. Okay, and this survey has been asking kids from the age, I believe, from 8 to 15, and those are the top 5. Less fun, you might smile here with some of them. Win is number 48. Going to tournaments, 63. Working with specialists, 66. Travel to compete, 73. And have photos taken of them, they don't care about it, it's 81. 81 out of all kinds of different criteria have been surveyed. Okay, so the top 5, do your best, athlete with treating them with respect, have playing time, getting along with teammates, and be active are the top 5. Keep that in mind. Okay, if we don't take care of them, of our kids, they become fans, spectators, and therefore doing crazy things. It is a photo that was taken in Rotterdam where kids and parents got so out of control that they banned spectators at some of their games some years ago. Encourage early age diversification. What does it mean? Here's some of the benefits of that. More options to pick a sport. Reach elite level in less hours. Increase technical and mental skills to other sports. Transfer to other sports. Increase motivation and confidence. And better decision making. I'm going to add one thing also. Being exposed to other coaches is positive, really positive. Being exposed to another mentality, another philosophy, another way of doing things is positive, and active longer during life as well. So those are all the positive thing about being diverse in your offering of your programming. That means that if you're dealing with kids in early age, I'm talking about 5 to 8. As a coach, as an organization, you have the role to play also in offering them something diverse. Also, not always about judo. It's about physical literacy. So the athletes you saw there are all football players, but you haven't seen any of them playing football in this video. Those are all the sports that they were playing prior to their professional football career in the United States. Training and certifying more coaches is so important also. What research saying on what kids want from coaches? Again, key things: respect, encouragement, positive model, clear communication, knowledge of sport, good listener. This is all. This is it. This is all coach. This is what kids want from their coaches in any sport. This is what they're looking for. And when we talk about good places, maybe you've seen that movie before, that baseball movie, Fields of Dreams, years ago, and the message was, if you build it, they will come. I think we have collectively in Canada do a better job in creating better facilities for our athletes. This is a photo of the INS, your National Training Center in Montreal, but collectively, and it's the same thing in any sport, we need to do a better job in offering better facilities for our athletes. And the last thing I had for you here before my final words was about the world. So is this thing working? Like people asking me, Andre, this is fantastic, but is this thing working? So let's take a look at it here. This is basketball. And basketball started implementing everything that I talked to you about back in 2006. And it took a couple of years for them to implement, and look at what happened after 2010, 12. And so those are here, the number of players that were drafted by NBA teams and the number of athletes that ended up playing college basketball and university basketball in the States. Crazy, right? And probably the next nation to have a success at the international level will probably be Canada, because they implemented it. Here's another current example, and that's tennis. People recognize the lady on the left, Serena Williams. Most people forget that the lady to the right, the young lady to the right, is a Canadian. Her name is Bianca, and she won the US Open a couple of years ago, if you remember, in New York. But people forget that we have others, like Shapovalov, Felix Auger-Aliassime, the youngest one that is coming also, Leah. And the reason why they're having successes is, again, because they are implementing long-term athlete development, not only at the national level, but at the provincial level and at the club level also. They are working together, and look at the results that they're having right now. Other countries, if that interests, if you're curious, this is Irish, this is Ireland, looking at the same type of model that I've presented to you during the course of this presentation. This is South Africa. Sometimes it's different words that they're using, but you see the same type of pathway from active start to active for life. Same thing here. This one is called more long-term player development. So other nations are using different terminologies, but at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing. This is Bahrain. Bahrain using the Canadian model, not only for athlete development, but for coach education as well. We've talked about the US earlier. Funny, but they're using the same Canadian system, but with different names. But for years, they've been coming to our summits. They've been coming to our conferences, being really, really quiet. And the first sport to implement it was USA Hockey. And the funny thing is that when they beat Canada, the World Junior Hockey some years ago, Canada said, like, what's going on here? How come USA is beating us at our sport? Until they realized that they were implementing the Canadian model in the States, where we were not here in Canada. So we had Canadian experts working with our US friends, and Hockey Canada were not. So therefore, Hockey Canada switched at that time in using our model. This is basketball also. Best country in the world is the USA right now. And they have a clear curriculum, development curriculum with a clear skills matrix. So at each stage of development, at each age group, we know exactly what they're going to be working on. This is Netherlands. Different words again. You probably recognize here: train to train, learn to skate. Best country in the world in speed skating right now is the Netherlands. They have a clear pathway to excellence also there. We saw a video about rugby earlier. You probably heard about the All Blacks. So the All Blacks are using a similar model. It's called Small Blacks to All Blacks, and they just present it differently. And again, it shows that there's a progression, whether you're under 6, under 7, under 8, under 9, under 11, and 12, and 13. And there are key things. If you're interested, I have a more complete document that explains what happens at each of those age group, but it's clear pathway, clear progression that they have in place for their sport in New Zealand. And again, are they good? I think they're pretty good, right? With their different successes that they've had over time. Sweden is another good example also. I've been fortunate to work with them, and they've been embracing all those concepts in order to have success. And you're looking at a country that has less population than the province of Quebec, for example. Same thing with Norway. They are Olympic champion in Winter Olympics with a population of 6-7 million population only. So that's quite impressive, but they have something in place to have success. And some of my last words before we're opening up for questions, keep in mind that performance, and however you describe performance, is your potential minus interference. And most of the time, those interference, we are creating ourselves as organizations, as clubs, as provinces, therefore impacting potential, and therefore wondering, how come I'm not getting the performance that I would like to have? So those interference is sometimes the program, sometimes it's the places, sometimes it's the people that we need to address in order to have proper success. And with everything that I've said today, obviously we're going to have to talk about change, right? And yes, a comment in the chat box here, New Zealand Rugby does not allow competitive leagues for kids under 12. That's correct. You're totally right. They have a totally different model. And that's probably one of the reasons it's working well. So that's my equation for change. And I'd like you to look at the bottom line here when we talk about visions and skills and incentive and resource and action plan. If you have those 5 things, you'll be able to implement change. You'll be able to bring change to your club, to your organization, so you can have success. But if I look at the first line, I remove vision and I got everything else, you're going to end up with some confusion because you don't know where you're going, right? So, and I look at the second one here, just give you 2 examples. I got a vision, but I don't have the skills. I'm going to end up with some anxiety. And when there's some anxiety, it's tough to implement change, and it's difficult to have success as well. So as an organization, if you're interested in bringing some successes, you need to look at those 5 pillars here: vision, skills, incentive, resource, and action plan. All right, so judo competition has changed for youth competitors over the years. That's fantastic. I'm sure there, like I said at the beginning, maybe some of the elements that I'm telling you today comes and confirm some of the good decisions that you've made as well along the way. So some of the final thoughts also is you need to go where the puck is going, not where it has been. So looking at something that you might have done for years that might not be working anymore. So you need to go that direction. And if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. So that's, to me, a powerful quote about the importance of changing, because I'm telling you, nations are changing right now to focus more on athlete and person development. And that's a key one, because I keep saying that collaboration is a new competition, and it's amazing how much you can accomplish when it does not matter who gets the credit. At the end of the day, we don't care who gets the credit. We care about the athlete that was at the center of everything that we've considered and planned and programmed over time. And whoever gets the credit is not really our objective. We want to make sure that the athletes are at the center of everything that we do here. So working together for judo in Canada and letting it go sometime, and trying to find also a better way of offering a better experience to our athletes will be highly beneficial. And the last thing is a word from Yoda. You do or do not, there is no try. And most people say, okay, I'm going to try to do it. But every time you start by answering, I'm going to try to do it, it won't happen. And the proof is, like I'm looking at my screen, I see Amanda in the middle of my screen. I'm going to use Amanda. If I ask Amanda to come to a party with me, or Pierre, or whoever else, and you answer by, I'll try to go, she ain't coming. And Pierre is not coming either. So, and we all do the same thing. Every time you answer by, I'll try to do something, we'll never do it. So you do or do not, there is no try. And that's how I wanted to close it today, with the wisdom of Yoda. So I'm going to open it up to questions, because I look at time, it's been an hour already. So I just want to open it up for questions, if there's any questions, or in the meantime, while you're thinking about your questions, I'm also curious, like I was curious at the beginning, if you can use the chat box and letting me know or write down what resonated the most for you on that presentation today. Is that something that sticking a little bit more in your mind right now? Like, I'm just curious to see what resonated a little bit more. Ashley's saying the pyramid versus a rectangle, fantastic, love it. Katie, no hassle rule, what kids like versus what they don't like. Yeah, some of the research about that. That's awesome. Anything else? What resonated a little bit for you here? The pyramid versus the rectangle with Kelly also, like it. Collaboration is the new competition. Haley, good. Your last chart is thought-provoking. Which one? The equation of change, maybe, I'm not sure. What's the kids like? Gary. Cost of assholes, the TCA, perfect. Knowing your own limitation to go further, okay, perfect. The sensitive periods, awesome. The diagram about making change equation, Gary, yeah, thanks for making the add-on to your thought here. I've always promoted training at different dojos. However, it is a minimum of hour drive. Like, I do understand that that's a limitation for sure. There's always a better way. I want to pass this information on to other coaches. Can I have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? We'll figure that out. It's recorded, like Nicolas saying, multi-sports philosophy along with the triangle. The interest of the athlete, good. Above the interest of the dojo of the coach. Love it, Jonathan, fantastic. Think of the kids first. Chart of skills at different age. This is something you need to master. It's important. That's as a coach, we put things on our refrigerator, print it out, put it on your fridge. This is the most important thing you need to have. Encouragements of diversity of sports, pre-pro draft, awesome, good. Any specific question? If there's any, you can open your mic and ask the questions. Don't hesitate. We are close to a regional training center and agree with the concept of working with other coaches. Fantastic, love it. The 5 things kids want for a coach, good. Well, good, like it's lots of takeaways, it seems. Any specific questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
It's Kelly Palmer from Alberta. We're probably no different in Alberta than any of the other provinces, and certainly nationally, accessing financial resources. Of course, now COVID has set everything on its head, but even aside from that, sport has always had limited resources and limited funding, and we all scramble with that, whether it's applying for grant, doing bottle drives, or trying to get larger corporate funding. How have you seen that work into trying to develop the kinds of models which you're talking about? How do you balance that struggle?
It's a very good question, and it's always it's always a roadblock, because we often think then with more money we can do more. I kind of changed my mindset towards that. Yes, it's fun to have more money, but money is tough to find. So I'm personally trying to be better at how I spend it, versus worrying about the fact that we're not having enough money. I don't know if you've seen another example of baseball. I don't know if you've seen the movie Moneyball, which, like, if you're Brad Pitt like a fan, you'll enjoy for sure. But it's how a small market baseball team in Oakland was able to compete with the best without more resources, like without the money. Like, you had New York, you had Boston, and then, like, right at the bottom there's Oakland. But they found a way to think differently without having also to always find new money. So that's kind of, and I know I'm not probably answering you the way you want, but at the same time, we need to look at the problem differently. We need to look at a way to spend our dollars more wisely, in order to accomplish a better result. And if we keep saying that it's because of money we're not achieving the results we should be achieving, then we'll never achieve anything.
Merci beaucoup.
Pleasure. Any other questions? Amanda, is your experience, I was working with female athletes different? Do you have tips for coaches to keep girls in sport longer? Oh boy, that's a very good question. I wish we had more time. Like I've been giving conferences on how to coach girls for quite some time. And I think I think the first thing is to better educate our people about stereotypes. That's one thing that we need. I've done something with the finance group, and I'll explain it to you. Like I had the Financial Management Institute people in front of me. And on each table, I put adjectives like ambitious, aggressive, all kinds of different adjectives. And I told them, I said, you need to come to a consensus at your table to see if you identify this adjective as being female or male. And if you think it's male, you're going to stick it to the wall on the left. And if you think it's female, you're going to stick it to the wall. And it's funny, you know, what I found is that ambitious was a male adjective for whatever reason. Sensible was a female thing. Like, what's going on here? So I was trying to explain to them that you're telling me that, to me, in sports, that if I have a female athlete that is a bit more aggressive, a bit more on the competitive side, that I won't take her because she doesn't fit the mold of a typical female person. Like, really? So I think that there's a lot of work that we need to do in breaking those stereotypes. And one thing I noticed, like I know it's a long answer to your question, but I don't think we would have enough time to answer it entirely. But one thing that I've noticed is that the social aspect is so much important for girls than it is for boys. Therefore, I needed to create those moments for girls to spend more time socially. For example, at the start of a practice, starting on time has been a challenge for my athlete versus starting at 5:05. That 5 minutes of talking, chatting, it's important for them. So for me as a coach, I need to acknowledge that and need to accept that it's okay to start 5 minutes late because it makes them happy. Another thing, positive reinforcement, stopping, like I like the catch them being good, in the sense that if they're doing something good, I need to tell them. Okay, even if it's really something really fantastic, I need to stop them and be a little bit of an actor. This is awesome, Amanda, what you just done. I'm so proud of you and everything. I need to tell them that. So catching them being good has been something that has been working for me over time, that I've learned from them too. Wish we had more time, Amanda. That's a very good question, but it would be a good discussion to have for sure. Do you have any advice on training the different phases of skill development for boys and girls when they're combined? I had the same question in the French conference earlier today, and this is the tough part, right? Because you have male and female, different age group in the same environment. Good luck. That's my answer. Good luck, but that's why our best coaches have to be working with those athletes, because it's so complicated. And I gave the example of Alexandre Despatie, and Alexandre Despatie was a highly decorated athlete in diving. He won the Commonwealth game, and then after the Commonwealth game, when he won, he was 13 years old. His performance started to decrease. Why? Growth spurt. Suddenly being in the space and diving, like what's going on, like recognizing his body awareness became really, really difficult for him. Therefore, his coach removed him from competition, kept him in the training environment, but he didn't compete for quite a bit, right? Because that coach recognized that athlete was struggling with body awareness at that time. Therefore, making better decision for him. Other coaches would have said, you can't dive anymore. You're finished, without having that knowledge. But in order to grow, you need to have that education. So it's tough because they are in that same, but you need to modify those objectives, those learning objectives as coaches, so it meets the demands for each of those athletes that are different.
I will have a question, André.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you. What is the reason, in your opinion, why Cuba lost its supremacy, moving from the top place in the world to the 10th position?
Well, I'll tell you my idea of the answer to the question. I think when they were successful, they were highly influenced by the Soviet Union. All their knowledge, their science came from them. When the Soviet Union exploded, they stuck with that knowledge that they've received from them for years. Therefore, when I go back there, their ways of training athletes is still stuck like 20, 25 years ago. In baseball, we beat them all the time now. So they're looking at us now to get the knowledge. They're far behind the pack. And it's because of their access. Like it's tough. Like I've been to Cuba several times. I know Havana, like I know Montreal. So the access to the information is so difficult for them. Therefore, when they look at how they plan, how they do things, they look at research from the 40s, from the 50s. They're just fell behind. So until they have a little bit more access, they're starting to open it up a little bit more to outsiders to come and help them out. They won't be able to succeed. They need to, and that's one problem that some nations are facing also, is that they're falling behind because they're not proactive. Like I said, my black box, right? They think they have all the successes and it's gonna stay like that forever. But at the end of the day, you need to be proactive in your learning, not only as coaches, but as an organization also. Any other questions?
Well,
Looking at time here, 3:15. I see there's other questions here. I don't know if we have time. How do you begin to change a mindset of organization that has been stagnant? It starts with the athletes. Again, I wish we had more time, but with my athletes some years ago, we've developed what we call our gold standards. Like I just facilitated the discussion. I didn't came up with that, but we came up with our way of practicing, our way of being. And I've developed that with my athletes. They came up with those principles together. So every time we're facing challenges, we can always fall back on our key principles. So trying to find a way to determine your DNA as an organization, as a club, will get you started. At least you'll get a foundation of where you want to start, what you're all about, who you are as a group, who you are as an organization. Will give you miles of work that you can do.
Well, thank you very much, André. I think that was very interesting. Just for everybody, we have recorded the session, so it will be shared sometime this week. So thank you, everybody, for taking part, and I hope to see you guys shortly in real life. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.